Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Welcome to episode 10 of the series Filtering Out What the Prophet ﷺ Never Said. A brother asked about the hadith about obeying your leader even if his head is like a raisin, referring to the people of Abyssinia. So it's important to note the wordings of hadith. Whenever we're narrating hadith, it's important to note the wording, the exact wording, so we don't change the meaning or change the message that is being conveyed. And in this case, the brother heard this is what the hadith that he heard or he might have come across. So he's asking about its authenticity. So there is a hadith that is authentic, that is sahih, narrated in Sahih Bukhari, in which the Prophet ﷺ said, "Isma'u wa ati'u," listen and obey, listen and obey, referring to the Muslim ruler, that the person should listen and obey their ruler. Now the Prophet ﷺ continued to say, again setting an example to show the extent of which a person should listen and obey their ruler. وَإِنِ اسْتُعْمِلَ عَلَيْكُمْ عَبْدٌ حَبَشِي كَأَنَّ رَأْسَهُ زَبِيبًا. Even if, he's saying, listen and obey, even if someone was appointed over you, who? An Abyssinian slave, as if describing that specific person, that specific Abyssinian slave, as if his head is like a raisin. It's not talking the sport as if his head is like a raisin, not referring to the people of Abyssinia. It's not talking about the entire nation or all the people from Abyssinia, but rather specifically to this example the Prophet ﷺ is giving. Even if an Abyssinian slave was appointed over you, was put in charge over you, and that Abyssinian slave's head is like a raisin. Again, if we think about it, a person's head isn't anything similar to a raisin. The Prophet ﷺ is going to that extent, comparing this Abyssinian slave's, this specific Abyssinian slave's head to a raisin, to say even if in that case, still listen and obey. Still listen and obey. Again, the Prophet ﷺ, let's stop and think, okay, he's a slave that is appointed over them. And it's tu'mil, appointed over. And the scholars have lengthy discussions with regards to the hadith and the other hadith, talking about the imama, the rulership, the Khalifa of the Muslims, does he have to be from Quraysh, and things like that. And there are authentic narrations which establish that yes, the Khalifa of the Muslims has to be from Quraysh. But the Khalifa can appoint other people to rule or govern over different areas or regions, and that's not a requirement in those rulers who are just in charge of their own regions or a lower level of leadership, so to speak. But if they're appointed, if a person's appointed by the ruler or if the ruler themselves, then that principle of obeying the ruler is the Muslim ruler is well established in the Quran and authentic Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And Prophet ﷺ is emphasizing this to the point where, and he's giving an example. He's saying even if a slave, they're free people, right? They're free. The companions the Prophet ﷺ is addressing, they're free people, so he's saying even if it's a slave who was appointed over you, who's ruling over you, still listen and obey him. Even if he was Habashi, even if he's from Abyssinia, even if he's a foreigner, even if he's someone who's from a different race, different region, not from Quraysh, not from your not an Arab, not from your own people. And you can imagine how hard it is for people to accept someone foreign to govern them, to rule over them, and they have to listen and obey. But the Prophet ﷺ is emphasizing the importance of that principle in Islam of listening and obeying the Muslim ruler, regardless of who he is. If he's a slave, even if he's a different race, from a foreigner from a different land, even if his head is like a raisin, to that extent. In other words, even if he, that's something that's given to show, even if it's to that extent. And we know that usually people look up to their leaders, people expect them to look presentable, to look good. But the Prophet is saying, even if his head is like a raisin, which is something that we can't even imagine. I mean, I don't know, can someone imagine someone's head like a raisin? The Prophet is giving that example to go to that extent of emphasizing the importance of obeying the Muslim ruler or whoever he has appointed, to show the extent of which, regardless of who that person is, in other words, regardless of who that Muslim leader is or who he has appointed as a leader over a group of people, or in a certain region or whatever, emphasizing the importance of to what extent we obey the Muslim ruler. And he gave a very extreme example in this case to show that even in this case, you still listen and obey. So how about in other cases that aren't as extreme? But in any case, this hadith is an authentic hadith in Sahih Bukhari. Barakallahu fikum, jazakumullah khaira, wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.